Nike stole from them. The sneaker industry was shaped by them, and yet you've probably never heard their story. ASICS wasn't built in a boardroom. It wasn't backed by billion-dollar investors. It was born in the ruins of World War II, when Japan was reduced to ashes, its cities flattened, its people left with nothing. In a tiny living room, surrounded by the devastation of war, a former soldier picked up a needle and stitched together his first pair of sneakers. Not for profit, not for fame, but to save an entire generation. This is how an atomic bomb led to the creation of one of the most influential sneaker brands of all time. The year is 1949. Japan is still picking up the pieces from World War II. The cities, once bustling with life, are now scarred landscapes of rubble and smoke. Factories stand silent. Industries are struggling, and an entire generation of young men, many of whom grew up knowing only war, are now left with no purpose, no future, and no direction. Among them is Kihachiro Onitsuka, a former military officer who has seen firsthand the devastation that war leaves behind, not just on the streets, but in the minds and bodies of Japan's youth. He knows that rebuilding a country isn't just about fixing roads or reconstructing buildings. It's about rebuilding people. And to Onitsuka, there was only one way to do that, through sports. Onitsuka believed that sports were more than just competition. They were about discipline, resilience, and hope. Athletics could restore the confidence of young men who had lost so much, help them rediscover a sense of purpose, and maybe, just maybe, change the trajectory of an entire generation. But there was one major problem. Japan had no proper sports shoes. You see, during the war, Japan's manufacturing industries had been entirely devoted to military production. Once the war ended, there was no infrastructure left for producing athletic footwear, leaving Japan's athletes at a disadvantage. And so Onitsuka took matters into his own hands. But unlike the giant shoe corporations of today, Onitsuka's company didn't start with multi-million-dollar factories, high-tech labs, or global investors. No, it started in his tiny living room. He had no factories, no employees, and no real business plan. What he had was a needle, some fabric, and an obsession with crafting a shoe that could change everything. His first creation was a pair of basketball shoes. They were hand-stitched, homemade, and, if we're being honest, not very good. The soles were too stiff, the grip was weak. They couldn't give players the control they needed on the court. By all accounts, his first attempt was a failure. Most people would have quit, but Onitsuka wasn't most people. Failure wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. It had been another long day in the workshop. Kihachiro Onitsuka sat at his desk, staring at yet another failed prototype. His basketball shoes weren't working the way he had hoped. The grip wasn't strong enough. The players kept slipping. No matter what changes he made, it never seemed to be enough. He leaned back in his chair, exhausted. Maybe he was missing something. Maybe the solution wasn't in the materials or stitching, but in something entirely different. Setting his work aside, he moved to the small wooden table where dinner was waiting, a plate of octopus salad. And as he picked up a piece with his chopsticks, something caught his attention. The octopus's tentacles gripped the plate effortlessly. That's when it clicked. What if a basketball shoe could do the same? The idea wouldn't let him go. Shoes had always relied on friction to create grip, but friction wasn't always reliable. Dust on the court, sudden movements, high-speed pivots, players needing something stronger, something that actively held onto the surface. So he scrapped everything and started fresh. His new design mimicked the suction cups of an octopus's tentacles, using small air pockets in the soles that would grip the court just like the octopus gripped his plate. At first, the prototypes weren't perfect. Some soles were too sticky, making it hard for players to run naturally. Others didn't provide enough hold. But Onitsuka kept refining the design, adjusting the size and pattern of the suction cups, experimenting with different materials until Finally, it worked. When players first tested the shoes, the difference was immediate. They could stop and pivot faster. Their movements felt more controlled. The shoes gave them stability on the court, and that was exactly what they needed. Coaches noticed. Teams wanted pairs. Suddenly, Onitsuka's small operation wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a full-fledged business. By 1951, he officially registered his company under a new name, Onitsuka Company Limited. Now, how does a brand born from war go on to outlast trends and change running forever? Stick around, because what ASICS did with a drill didn't just put them on the map, it revolutionized the entire sneaker industry. But before we dive in, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out. As his basketball shoes took off, Onitsuka turned his attention to another group of athletes, marathon runners. Unlike basketball players, their biggest challenge wasn't quick movements or pivots, it was endurance. And endurance wasn't just about stamina, it was about what happens inside the shoe. During long-distance runs, heat buildup caused painful blisters and fatigue. Onitsuka wanted to fix that too. He started experimenting with different materials and designs, looking for a way to keep runners' feet cool and comfortable over long distances. That's when he came up with another radical idea. What if shoes could breathe? He drilled tiny holes in the soles, allowing for better airflow. This simple yet revolutionary change helped prevent blisters and overheating, giving marathon runners an edge over their competition. In 1951, a young marathon runner named Shigekai Tanaka laced up a pair of Onitsuka's shoes and entered Japan's national marathon. Tanaka wasn't just running for himself, he was running for a country that was still recovering from war, for a generation trying to rebuild. And he won. That victory was a turning point. Onitsuka Company Limited continued to expand, crafting innovative designs not just for basketball and marathons, but for Olympic athletes and international competitors. The true breakthrough came in 1966, when the company released the Mexico 66, a sleek, modern shoe featuring the now iconic Onitsuka Taiga. The design became one of the most recognizable patterns in sportswear history, and it wasn't just athletes wearing them. Martial arts legend Bruce Lee was famously seen wearing the Mexico 66 in his films, helping to solidify Onitsuka's reputation in pop culture and beyond. That's where a young entrepreneur named Phil Knight entered the picture. Knight, a former track athlete from Oregon, had traveled to Japan in the early 1960s with a vision. He wanted to bring high-quality, lightweight running shoes to the U.S. He admired the craftsmanship of Onitsuka Taiga and saw a massive opportunity. So he made a deal. Under his newly formed company Blue Ribbon Sports, BRS, Knight became the exclusive distributor of Onitsuka Taiga shoes in the United States. He sold them out of the trunk of his car at track meets, building up a loyal following among runners who appreciated the shoe's superior design. For a while, the partnership worked. BRS helped Onitsuka Tiger establish a foothold in America, and Onitsuka's shoes were gaining traction in a market that was just beginning to embrace the running revolution. But behind the scenes, tensions were growing. Knight had greater ambitions. He wasn't content just distributing shoes. He wanted control. He saw the potential to build something bigger, something uniquely American. At the same time, Onitsuka executives had started questioning BRS's loyalty. Rumors swirled that Knight was quietly developing his own sneaker brand, one that would eventually compete directly with them. The situation reached a boiling point in 1971 when Onitsuka tried to cut Knight out of the equation, looking for a new U.S. distributor. Knight, feeling betrayed, decided he wouldn't just fight back, he would create his own brand. That's when Nike was born. Blue Ribbon Sports became Nike Incorporated, and instead of selling Onitsuka Taigas, Knight launched his own sneakers, one that took heavy inspiration from the Japanese designs he had been distributing. The first Nike models, including the Cortez, were nearly identical to Onitsuka Taiga's best-selling running shoes. A legal battle followed, with both sides accusing each other of breach of contract and deception. Eventually, Knight won the right to move forward with Nike, while Onitsuka Taiga was left to rebuild its position in the US market. For some companies, losing a distributor like Knight would have been a death blow. But for Onitsuka, it was just another challenge to overcome. In 1977, he made a decisive move that would change the course of the company forever. Instead of continuing as a standalone shoe manufacturer, Onitsuka Taiga merged with two other Japanese companies, GTO Company Limited, which specialized in sportswear and apparel, and Jalink Company Limited, a brand focused on athletic gear and accessories. The merger was about creating a complete sports performance company that could compete with the rising giants of the industry. Onitsuka knew that success in the future wouldn't just come from making great shoes, it would come from innovation across all areas of sports science. With footwear, clothing, and performance gear under one roof, the new company could support athletes in a way that no Japanese brand had done before. But with a new company came the need for a new identity. Onitsuka wanted a name that would reflect the deeper mission behind his work. He turned to an old Latin phrase that had long been the guiding principle in sports and wellness: anima sana in corpore sano, which translates to a sound mind in a sound body. This philosophy had been at the heart of Onitsuka's mission from the very beginning. He didn't just want to sell products, he wanted to promote physical and mental well-being through sports. From this phrase came the company's new name, ASICS. While other companies fought for cultural dominance, ASICS turned to sports science. They weren't interested in gimmicks. They wanted to change the way athletes moved. By the 1980s, the running boom had taken over. More people than ever were lacing up their sneakers, training for marathons, and embracing fitness as a lifestyle. But there was a problem. High-impact running was brutal on the body. Other brands were experimenting with air pockets and foam soles, searching for ways to soften the blow. ASICS had a better idea. In 1986, they introduced gel technology, a shock-absorbing system designed to reduce strain on joints and prevent injuries. Unlike air cushions, which could deflate, or foam, which lost its bounce over time, gel was durable, responsive, and more effective at distributing impact. For serious runners, it was a game changer. The innovation made running smoother, less tiring, and far more comfortable. While Nike and Adidas were fighting over market share, ASICS quietly became the go-to choice for professional athletes and dedicated marathoners. By the 1990s, ASICS had established itself as one of the most respected names in running footwear. But they weren't done yet. Unlike other sneaker brands that shifted towards hype culture, ASICS never lost sight of its core mission: building the best performance shoe possible. That philosophy led to one of the most ambitious projects in the brand's history, the ASICS Research Institute of Sports Science, ISS. In 1990, ASICS opened the ISS in Kobe, Japan, a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to studying human movement and perfecting athletic footwear. This wasn't just a lab, it was a full-scale sports research center. It featured an all-weather track with multiple surfaces, 2 types of tennis courts, an experimental gymnasium, an environmental chamber to simulate extreme temperatures, and a sports medicine laboratory. Everything was designed to analyze and improve the way athletes moved. ASICS operated by a strict Kaizen philosophy, continuous improvement. Every new shoe had to improve at least 2 of the following 8 features: cushioning, stability, flexibility, fit, grip, breathability, weight, or durability. If a model didn't meet that standard, it wasn't released. One of the best examples of this commitment came in 1993, when ASICS designer Toshikazu Kayano set out to create a running shoe that was both supportive and lightweight. He found inspiration in an unlikely place: a stag beetle. Kayano noticed how the beetle's hard exoskeleton protected it while allowing for speed and agility. This idea led to the development of the Gel Kayano, one of the most iconic stability running shoes in history. It combined strong structural support with ASICS' signature gel cushioning, making long-distance running safer and more efficient. The brand's relentless focus on research and innovation paid off. By 2024, ASICS had achieved remarkable global success. The company's operating profit reached 100.1 billion yen, marking the first time it surpassed this milestone. The operating margin stood at 14.8%, placing ASICS among the industry's leaders. Notably, the Sports Style and Onitsuka Tiger lines each recorded net sales of approximately 100 billion yen, with Sports Style experiencing a 66.1% increase from the previous fiscal year and achieving a profit margin of 27.3%, which was a 700 basis points increase from the previous fiscal year. Sales in North America grew an astounding 120%. Even as sneaker trends come and go, ASICS remains rooted in science, innovation, and the simple belief that better understanding leads to better performance. In a world where brands rise and fall based on hype, ASICS has quietly stood the test of time. And that's the incredible story of ASICS. So, what do you think? Is ASICS the most underrated sneaker brand of all time? Let us know in the comments. Hit subscribe or get eaten by Onitsu tigers and stay tuned to watch these intriguing videos on the screen.